Steve Alford denies he's leaving UCLA for Indiana head coaching job. UCLA Bruins head coach Steve Alford remains committed despite buzz that he could bolt for the Indiana Hoosiers. Following Friday's 86-75 Sweet 16 loss to the Kentucky Wildcats, Alford told ESPN.com's Jeff Goodman he is staying at UCLA and will not entertain offers from his alma mater after the Hoosiers fired head coach Tom Crean. "I'm absolutely 100% not going to Indiana," he said. "I am happy here. I love it here. We have a great recruiting class coming in and a brand new practice facility." That recruiting class is going to be key for Alford and the Bruins, who are expected to be without several key contributors from their Sweet 16 run. Point guard Lonzo Ball told reporters Friday night he's leaving for the NBA, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see fellow freshman TJ leave the 23rd-ranked player on Jonathan Wasserman's big board turn pro as well. The Bruins will also have to replace the production of seniors Bryce Alford and Isaac Hamilton. Fortunately for Alford, his incoming recruiting class is loaded. Not only did the Bruins net commitments from three-star swingman LiAngelo Ball, Lonzo's brother, and four-star forward Cody Riley, but they also nabbed a pair of five-star gems in Chris Wilkes and Jalen Hands. That group will have a high standard to live up to after the Bruins went 29-4 and 2 NCAA tournament games, but it's called Ford has a successful blueprint sketched out. NBA scores 2017. Devin Booker scored 70 points, and who cares if the Suns lost? The reactions to Devin Booker's 70-point game came in waves. First, curiosity: Devin Booker scored how many? Then disbelief: Simon, for real? Following that came the amazement, incredulity, and awe. After all, Booker's 70-game isn't he something? That happens often. Only 5 other players have done it in NBA history. The counter-narrative popped up shortly after, coming from the Celtics players, and on social media. Booker still lost, they started saying. In fact, the Suns lost 130-120, after trailing by 20-plus points most of the game. Booker only reached 70 because his coach and teammates sold out on getting him touches. Yes, that happened too, and Booker himself admitted it. He knew some of the Celtics didn't love what the Suns did, like Jay Crowder. "Which I understand," Booker told reporters. "We were trying to run up my points. The Suns sold out so that Booker could reach 70 points. Phoenix head coach Earl Watson took 2 timeouts and an intentional foul in the final 2 minutes to make sure Booker had the time and rest he needed. Without all that, Booker wouldn't have scored 16 points in the final 2:19, and no one is denying that. We can establish all that aspect. Now what? Those realities are already being used by a few people to belittle what Booker did. Nobody will try to deny he didn't score a very lot of points on Friday, but they can't say he wouldn't have got there without his team propelling him along. They can't say the Suns made a mockery of the game, and only in that ridiculous environment could Booker drop 51 points in the second half alone to hit the 70-point plateau. Suns head coach Earl Watson didn't see it like that. "Do something about it if you don't like it," Watson said after the game. He was just putting Booker into the best possible situation he could to make him successful. This has been, and will be, a talking point for why we shouldn't care as much about Booker as 70 points. But before we toss out his performance from this elite, 6-person brotherhood of 70-point scorers, let us examine who else actually recorded these numbers. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. It as well chronicled how the second half of this game turned into a shit show, with Chamberlain's team becoming dedicated to get him touching the ball every play. David Robinson's 71-point game came on the final game of the year, with Robinson trying to win the scoring title. The same thing happened for David Thompson, who scored 73 points on the final game of the season. Chamberlain lost 3 of his 6 70-plus point performances, while Thompson lost his game as well. The Suns are terrible this season, and Boston is headed to the playoffs, and nothing about Friday's game would have changed that. Of course, Phoenix will celebrate Booker's accomplishments, as he explained after the game. It ends up coming back to one idea: sports is just entertainment. It's all here for us to enjoy. Feel free to appreciate Kobe Bryant's 81 points more, because it was a close game the whole way, but understand that certainly doesn't mean Booker should be diminished in any way. Do you know, without all that fun stuff, at the end, Booker almost certainly still would have had at least 60 points. Nothing about that is artificial. What a game. What a show. And if you're saying Booker had the worst 70-point game of all time, just make sure you remember he is still a 20-year-old who still had a 70-point game. One of these teams will play for national championship: Gonzaga, South Carolina, Xavier, Florida. One of the 4 following teams is going to play for the national championship 1 week from Monday: Gonzaga, Xavier, South Carolina, or Florida. Remember that British soccer team that overcame 5,000-1 odds to win England's top football league last year? Well, Leicester City has nothing on this foursome, a motley crew that's one of the most unlikely groups ever to be left standing on one half of an NCAA tournament bracket. On the other side of the bracket, the 4 remaining teams have 51 Final Four appearances and 17 titles. On this side, the numbers are 5 and 2, respectively. 5 and 2, all courtesy one team. Add up all the seeds: number 1, Gonzaga; number 4, Florida; number 7, South Carolina; and number 11, Xavier. And you get the second highest in history for one side of the Elite Eight. The highest came in 2002 when number 2 Oklahoma, number 4 Indiana, number 10 Kent State and number 12 Missouri all made it that far. Of course, there's one glaring difference between this year and those years: power teams in major conferences. Back in 2002, it was more of the same. Indiana has one of the best pedigrees in the sport, while Oklahoma and Missouri had fine basketball histories. They were named schools. Those numbers all come from the most, only decorated team of the pack. Florida is an excellent basketball program that won back-to-back titles in 2006 and 2007 and is a constant presence in the second week of the tournament. This year, though, they were the number 4 seed, but the 5th best team in the East, with number 5 Virginia entering the tournament with better odds. This was Villanova and Duke's region. Mike White's team would need another year to marinate, or so we thought. Then there's Gonzaga, a school with a century of irrelevance followed by 18 phenomenal years playing some of the most consistent basketball in the nation, but with no Final Fours to show for it, and a footprint that only goes outside a Spokane radius for 2 weeks every March. Xavier is a perennial tournament team with a number of Sweet 16s to its credit, but has only come close to the Final Four once, and, in that game, they lost by about 20 points. Again, to basketball lovers, Xavier is a well-known quantity. Outside it, they're the school that gets mispronounced only slightly less than Louisville. And then there's South Carolina, one of the most undecorated college basketball programs for any major conference team. We'll take a look at each of the schools that will fight it out for the right to, probably, lose to Kansas or Kentucky in the title game. Since South Carolina is new to even the biggest college basketball fans, we'll focus on their fascinating history first. Entering this year, South Carolina had 4 wins in its NCAA tournament history. In the past 8 days, the team has 3. Some schools with more tournament wins than South Carolina had as of last Thursday: Lamar, Morehead State, Drake, Canisius, Holy Cross, Wyoming, Weber State, St. Bonaventure, Pepperdine, Rutgers, Dartmouth, and NYU. Yes, NYU. And if you want to get technical about it, South Carolina actually only had NCAA wins in main draw games. The school's other two victories came back when there were regional third-place games, which teams played after a round of 16 loss. The Gamecocks had never been to the Sweet 16, let alone an Elite Eight. And the team's first-round win over Marquette was the first tourney victory for the school since 1973. They've never had more than 25 wins, a school record they tied Friday. Up until Friday's upset of Baylor, this one is crazy. South Carolina hadn't held a halftime lead in the NCAA tournament since 1971. It's especially odd since the team's 4 wins came in 1972 and 1973. South Carolina's defense is one of the 5 most efficient in the nation, as rated by Ken Baum. The offense entered the tournament ranked in the 120s. Only 6 schools in the entire dance, none better than a number 13 seed, were worse. In 2010, current South Carolina coach Frank Martin led Kansas State to its first Elite Eight since 1988, a team led by future NBA star Mitch Richmond, which was also the last time the team had made 3 straight NCAA tournaments, which it also did under Martin. Despite Kansas State's middling basketball history, the school has 2 former coaches in the Elite Eight. In addition to Martin, Oregon's Dana Altman also has his team 1 win away from the Final Four. Altman was in Manhattan from 1990-94. There could have been 3 KSU coaches in this year's regional finals if Bob Huggins' West Virginia team had defeated Gonzaga. It's one of those only in March oddities. South Carolina star Sindarius Thornwell has siblings named Quantavius and Quashekok. Xavier. The Musketeers didn't win a game between February 9th and March 3rd. That 6-game losing streak came after sophomore Edmund Sumner, the team's point guard star, who had per-game averages of 15.0 points, 5.0 assists, and 4.3 rebounds, was lost for the year with an ACL tear. Xavier was an excellent 18-6 before the injury, but the team entered the Big East tournament at 19-12 with a 7th-place finish and .500 record in the Big East. It wasn't until a win over Butler in the conference tournament that Xavier moved off the bubble. Now, all that keeps it from the Final Four is a win over a team that's never been there. Neither have the Musketeers, but you get the point. Bill Murray's son, Luke, is an assistant at Xavier. Hasn't been a bad 6 months for the world's most famous Cubs fan, and, now, college basketball's most famous parent of an assistant, admittedly a less noble distinction. Gonzaga. There's a misconception that the Bulldogs have been a tournament disappointment. Before we get to that, let's back up, way back. The school, which has had a basketball program since 1909, didn't make a postseason tournament appearance until the 1994 net. In '95 the Zags went dancing for the first time. Dan Monson took over in 1997, led the team as number 10 seed to the 1999 Elite Eight, and then left for Minnesota. Mark Few was named coach in 1999 and has never missed the tournament. Ever. Now, in those 19 straight tournaments, Gonzaga hasn't made it past the first weekend 11 times. That's a lot. But in 6 of those years they lost to a better-seeded team. In only 1 were they a number 1 seed prior to this season. The Zags were double-digit seeds as many times as a top 4 seed, 6 each. Has Gonzaga disappointed in the tournament? By standard measures, I suppose. But for a small Washington school, from the usually one-bid WCC, to put together one of the longest streaks of tournament play, twice get #1 seed, and be an annual threat to do big things in March. It's anything but disappointing. That being said, there's still a big fat zero in the team's Final Fours column. With South Carolina tapped, the path has never been, and probably will never be again, more clear. If Gonzaga loses this game, then the naysayers will have their ammunition. And this time they'll have a point. Florida. Do you know the Gators well? Before 1994, the team was basically South Carolina. They had 3 tournament appearances. But that year the school got its best seed, #3, and went to the Final Four. They went back again in 2000, with young coach Billy Donovan. Then, of course, Florida won back-to-back titles in 2006 and 2007. There was little let-up, with 4 straight Elite Eight appearances, from 2011-14. The team missed the NCAAs in Donovan's final season, 2015, and successor Mike White's first season, 2016. Now they're back in the regional finals, and they brought 3 unexpected teams with them. Who emerges from the pack? One thing's for certain, if you think you know, then you definitely don't.